Okay, so I'll set up a parting tool now and we'll lop this one off. So because we're doing quite a deep parting operation, we want to make sure our parting tool blade is dead square to the workpiece. So let's just use the end of the job because we know that's square. We can just do that and we know we're not going to do a cockeyed part. Now I will have to increase the length of the blade, but what I'm going to do is I'll go through as deep as I can with it in this position. Halfway through the cut, then I will increase the depth. It just keeps the blade, everything a bit more rigid. And of course, quick break for that time of the day. Let's check our quality made cheap Chinese reamer. Make sure our calipers are zeroed. One and a half thou up on size. So if I'd had to use this, the chances are it probably would have reamed 2 thou up. So there you have it, cheap Chinese reamer. Okay, we'll just set our parting off tool so we're cutting a bit longer than our finished size. That'll leave us a bit to clean up on, so that should be fine there. So we're going to be parting off on 420 RPM, and I'll use a bit of WD rather than the flood coolant. As we're working right up against the jaws, it'll just make a mess everywhere. So far so good. Okay, I'll give this blade a bit more length. I'll also set the drill chuck up with a stop rod just to catch the part. And to keep that as short as we can. and I'm just eyeballing, making sure we've got good clearance on the side of the blade, and we have picked up the groove exactly in the same spot which we have. So we'll get our drill chuck in, and our stop rod or our catch rod, just a piece of bar stock just held in the drill chuck. Okay, we'll continue on. Our lathe back into gear. There she goes. Okay, so we'll turn it around and we'll get the side faced off. And we have a little disc left over. Maybe for a future project might come in handy. Right, we've turned around into the 3-jaw, and we're actually not gripping on very much, we're only gripping on a little bit there. It's not gripped tight either, as I don't want to damage the part. But we're only going to take a few light facing cuts off just to clean this edge up and bring it to length. Okay, the turning is complete. So we'll go over now and broach our keyway. Then we've got a grub screw to drill and tap. And we better make sure we have the desired fit on the shaft. That is beautiful. Couldn't ask for better. Lovely. So it's keyway time. It's a 3/16 keyway. I'm only going to measure off here. I'm not going to look it up in the machinery's handbook and check all that. So that's 836 thou across from the top of the keyway to the shaft. So as long as we're in the vicinity of 840 in depth from the base of the board to the top of the key, when we broach our key, we'll be fine. So here's our typical Chinese broach. It's not mine actually, with its limited amount of shims, not like a Malco. So we're looking for 840. So what we want to measure is the depth that this thing is going to cut. So if I go off the last tooth, which would be the last tooth that does the cutting, we're 791 and a half. Not deep enough. Put our next shim in, thin one. $825. We're looking for 840. These shims are actually marked. This is marked for 3/16 keyway, but I still like to check. And this is 842. So that's fine for our keyway. So we use the thick broach. Now previous broaching sets that I'm more familiar with using, I've used a lot over the years, as predominantly Malco broaches, and we had a lot thinner series of shims too, because aluminium pulleys, when you broach an aluminium pulley, what can happen, and I've had it happen to me before in the past, because there's such an aggressive cutting face on these broaches, you will find some pulleys, mainly I had problems with some small cast pulleys, cast aluminium pulleys. The broach can tend to dig in a bit and will cause you to cut your keyway oversized in depth. So that's why I prefer to do it in a couple of smaller increment shims rather than one big shim in one or two big bites, you know, because the thinner the shim, the less chance the broach is going to dig in. And I think that was happening a lot. If you remember a couple of videos back when we broached the keyway in that mower hub, now that was hard steel, that, and I was sort of feeling this broach digging in a bit there. So it does pay, if you have a broaching set, it does pay to make some thinner shims, say 10 thou shims. This one here, see, this is a 50 thou shim, so you really want to be using 10 and 20 thou shims and step it up slowly. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. What we'll do is we'll broach it first, no shim, then we'll use the thin one, and then we'll go to the final one. So we'll do it in 3 passes. Okay, so we're set up in our Humpty Dumpty press, broaching guides in, drop our broach in, and as Ralphie says, when you're using cutting oil, yeah, well, I won't go there. Okay, let's go for it. A future project of mine is to build an arbor press. They're quite expensive things to buy, so it's something I can knock out quite easily. And halfway through, just back it off and go through. I'll show you something. I'll just stop here. I'm going to make my own set of broaching guides because I don't like these ones that come in this cheap Chinese kit. I would actually make mine a bit longer. So as you can see, the broaching guide is up inside the bore, which is not a good thing. It means the broach is cutting unsupported for the last, what, 3/4 of an inch. No, it's not a good thing to have happen. We'll just go and grab our or something to push the broach through the last part. Okay, bit of key steel, that'll do for the extension that we need. Okay, that's our first pass. Just took it out for an eyeball and it's looking okay. Okay, so our next thinnest shim. The WD. And a bit of extension. Make sure we're central. Go again. Halfway down, just release it. Go again. Release it again. And we're through. I'll just hold it up to the light for another inspection. Yeah, it's looking good. You can actually, the camera, you guys won't see it, but I can hold that up to the light and I can eyeball down the length of that keyway that it is in fact cutting parallel, and we're not having any issues with it digging in. Okay, so our last shim. Press out the way. WD. And go again. This is the final cut. Release it. We're releasing it so we're not building up any side pressure, because these broaches will snap quite easily, just to make sure everything's still pushing straight. As well, this press is a bit piss wobbly, it's not the greatest. Another project. Out of stroke. We'll go and find our Keyway pusher that we dropped. And we're there. One Keyway. So we'll go have a measure up and a trial fit. Right. It can be a bit of a tricky animal to measure with a vernier. Just got to get the spot just right. So we're going for 840, we're ish. $839, and we check the other end. $834. So there's 5 thou difference. That'll be caused by, remember I said that the broaching bush didn't go full length, it stopped 3/4 of an inch shy, so you'll get a bit of push off with the broach there. Well, I'll just quickly go off camera and I'll just push that broach back through on a final cut through the other way with the largest shim in that we use, and that will even that out, and then we're good to go. Okay, so we turn the part over, fit it to from behind with the broach, and we're coming up with, you want to be reading the smallest number you get when you do this. So we're 838.5. 837. Yeah, you have to read your smallest number that you're picking up. You could be going cockeyed and then you'll get a larger number. So we're at 837. I'm picking up an 837 here as well. Yeah. Okay, let's have a trial fit on the motor. Okay, so we have to make sure our Keyway has a nice fit, not binding, which it is. Make sure we haven't left a burr, which we haven't. Keyway in. I always leave the key hanging out a little bit, and then I can start the pulleys on the key. Couple of thumps, she's home. Running great. No wobble in that. That's what we want. So we'll check our run out and see how we did at the end of the day. So this is a metric dial indicator, graduated in 100ths of a millimetre. So we're just over 100th of a millimetre. So that's good in my book. So convert that to imperial. So that's about 4 5/10. Okay, quick check to make sure when we drill our hole it does in fact come out in the middle of our keyway there. So piece of tool steel up against the edge of the pulley. I'm just going to use the butt of the square up against the edge of the keyway. I'll take a measurement. It's 48mm. Repeat the process for the other side. And we're 48mm. It is one thing I always try and get right, because it looks funny when your hole doesn't come out in the middle of the keyway, and it is a rather difficult thing to eyeball, so that's what we've got these things for. So, anyway, let's get centered above and drill our hole. So we can quickly now centralize our drill bit in front of the keyway, making sure you rotate the drill bit 180 degrees in case there's a bend in it. So we'll just bring it forward and position it the right distance back. And it's just a straight visual check the other way. So that's a pretty simple one to do. So we'll get our hole started. Just going to use the centre drill first. Then our tap drill for size that we're doing is 1/4 inch UNC. This is the thread we're going to tap. Just change this light a bit, that's a bit better. And we're through. So I'll just go in a little way, just with a 1/4 inch drill bit. This is just so our tap starts on a, well, it'll just make it easier to start our tap, and it will reduce the burr we've got to file out also. So if we hadn't have done that, let's see if we can bring you in for a close shot. So with that other drill bit that we just put through the 1/4 inch drill bit, See, it relieves a little section just there in the angled side of the V-pulley, and the same thing on the other side, just there. So when we go to start the tap, we don't have the tap biting into the angled sides of the V-pulley. So just gives it a bit of relief. So let's get our tap started. So I'm just going to hold the tap in the chuck. And the WD-40. I'm just going to push it through by hand. We'll start it by hand anyway. Okay. Tap wrench on. And away we go. Just clearing the tap out, and then I'll go again. And we're through. Okay, we can take that out of the vise now. So we're right in the centre that way. Probably won't see this way. And we hit our centre position down in the keyway. So quick bit of file action and she's finished. Okay, that's this job complete. All come out rather well. We didn't have to muck around, there's no polishing, scotch brighting, all the finishes are directly as they came straight off the tool. So, job's right. Okay, the next thing I've got to really pull my finger out, or as my grandfather and dad used to tell me, rattle your dags, boy. That means hurry up, get this new shop happening. So I'm currently working on the foot mould flashing, which is some flashing around the base of the tin where the tin meets the concrete slab. So I'll be hooking back into that, and hopefully, yeah, I'll get enough footage together for a quick update video. So anyway, cheers, thanks for watching, and hopefully catch you in another video. See ya.